Welcome to Live from Mackinac, sponsored by DTE Energy. It's a beautiful day on Mackinac Island, as it will be for the next 3 days. And we have an exciting programming for you here with DTE Energy's stage on Live from Mackinac. We're going to start it off today with Samantha Schreiber, our first moderator, and she's going to spend some time with our pollster and Michigan's pollster, Richard Czuba. So take it away.
Yes, happy first ever Live from Mackinac. How are you feeling about it, Richard?
Feeling great, and it's a beautiful day again.
So the Glengarry poll just dropped for this conference. For people that haven't seen it yet, what is genuinely surprising you here?
Well, I think, on the policy survey, what's interesting is the degree to which voters are getting very nervous about the economy. 62% of Michigan voters see a weakening economy now, and that's up from 55. We asked about the recession. Do you fear a recession in the next year? And that's gone from 27 in January to 38 now. Back in the height of the campaign, that was down at 20%. So we've seen a doubling of fears of recession. And on the question of inflation, do you expect inflation to get better, worse, or stay the same? It's gone from 29 in January to 43 now. Back in the height of the campaign, it was only at 16. So we've seen that triple the fear of inflation, and it's being driven by Democratic voters and independent voters. Republicans think everything's going well with the economy right now. So we're seeing this stark difference on economic views based on, you're viewing the economy based on your party affiliation.
So you would say, just to confirm, Democrats were more comfortable with the economy in 2024 when Biden was in the White House?
Well, no, they weren't that comfortable with it, actually. What we saw in 2024, yes, Democrats thought the economy was better, Republicans thought it was awful, but by no means the Democratic voters in 24 think the economy was in good shape.
When you think about issues, when you think about voter morale, how are the Michiganders today different from the Michiganders that you polled last spring?
Last spring, well, I don't know that they have shifted in last spring. I think what shifted now is, as we look to the next election, it becomes a referendum on the party in power. And that's just historically speaking. Midterms are going to be a referendum on whoever the president is. And so as we head forward the next 16 months, this is going to become a referendum on Donald Trump.
Do you think 2025, is it the year of the independent collaborator, or is it the year of the partisan firebrand? Because I feel like you're seeing both in Michigan's political space right now.
Well, we've released a horse race survey, a political survey, and I just want to caution, it's very early in this process to be polling. We don't even know the full field. But one of the things we're seeing is that Mayor Duggan is polling at 22%. Of the vote. That's unheard of for an independent in Michigan. We haven't seen that. I mean, I know my history pretty well back to the 1963 Constitutional Convention. We have not seen that here in Michigan. And he is exceptionally strong in Southeast Michigan.
Do you think because of that, are we going to see more independents enter races ahead of the 2026 elections, or are we right now just witnessing a solo Duggan experiment?
I think we're witnessing a solo Duggan experiment right now. I mean, the reality is there are very few political figures in Michigan that come as an independent with what Mike Duggan brings, which is incredible name ID in Southeast Michigan. I mean, he's got 86% name ID down in the Metro Detroit market, compared to only like 30% in outstate. That's his challenge here. But it's also an opportunity for him if he can build his name ID in outstate regions. But this is unique right now to Michigan in terms of we haven't seen this before.
Where did you drive up here from, Richard?
I drove up from St. Joseph.
So did you see the Duggan signs already?
I did.
November 2026 is Independence Day.
Right.
And there's some red and blue ones. What are your thoughts on his ability to run as a general election candidate well ahead of any primaries, well ahead of 2026?
Well, as I said, he's winning the race in Southeast Michigan and Metro Detroit. He's getting kind of clobbered in outstate. So that's his challenge and his opportunity in terms of that. But I think the bigger question becomes, we're 18 months out. As this election gets closer, it becomes more and more a referendum on the president. as any midterm does. So what happens to all these people flirting with an independent candidacy right now? They have a history of simply voting for Democrats and Republicans. Do they revert back to form, or do they actually plunk the lever and vote for the independent?
I want to stretch the frame out a little bit here. When you think about candidates to watch, it can be U.S. Senate, it can be the governor's race, any congressional race. Who are some underdogs that you're a bit intrigued by, beyond just Mike Duggan? Who else is worth watching?
Well, I think, in our numbers in the Senate race, I was very surprised, frankly, to see the strength of Haley Stevens' numbers in the U.S. Senate race. Mike Rogers comes to this with 76% name ID based on last election. He carries it over. Haley Stevens only comes with 43% name ID. And yet, she's doing something in these numbers that allow her to take a lead on him at this stage, both with registered voters by 1 point and with definite voters by 6 points. Those are startling numbers from her.
Do you think Republicans, have they put themselves in a box? Do they have to have Mike Rogers as their U.S. Senate candidate, or is there still room for someone else to get in?
Well, there's clearly room for someone else to get in, but Mike Rogers is the clear favorite in a primary because of his high name ID with Republicans. He's got to get through a primary first. We don't know if he's going to have one. We think Congressman Huizenga might run. But right now, Mike Rogers is the clear advantage there. And, we see the stories that the decks are being kind of cleared for him on that nomination. So I think it'd be very hard for someone to really run an aggressive campaign against him for the nomination.
You did see him perform behind Donald Trump in 2024, though. So does he now become more of a partisan firebrand, or does he try to recreate a moderate formula?
He kind of did the partisan firebrand last election, and yet Alyssa Slotkin won that race, very narrowly, mind you. And the one thing we saw in those numbers last election was Mike Rogers closed the gap very quickly because he brought those Republicans home. I would expect him to run the similar race, bring those Republicans home. This election very much is going to hinge on what every election does, which is who actually shows up.
I want to talk about the issues. Okay. Democrats have been very intense on their messaging that targets U.S. House Republicans as Medicaid cutters. A curiosity I have is, can a Medicaid cut do for Democrats what the overturn of Roe v. Wade did for them in 2022?
Listen, the Roe v. Wade overturn was a tsunami. It's something we hadn't seen. In fact, when you look at midterm elections, which the party in power should get routed. History tells us that. Didn't happen in 22 because of Roe v. Wade. The only other time that really didn't happen was in 2002 because of 9/11. So Roe v. Wade being overturned is a very special event. I think what maybe we should be looking at as comparable to this Medicaid issue is what happened in 2018 with the Republican attempt to throw out Obamacare. That health care, that pre-existing conditions issue really played well for Democrats. I think that's what they're angling for, is a similar style of health issue that played for them.
I know I asked you about underdogs to look out for. I kind of want to flip that coin. Who do you think are the most overrated candidates ahead of 2026?
I don't know that I'd call anybody overrated. I mean, the reality is that's for the voters to decide. But I think, in the gubernatorial race right now, we're seeing two clear frontrunners emerging right now in Jocelyn Benson and John James. I think John James has the potential of having a more difficult race, simply because there's more people who might get into that race. And we see, for example, in the poll, the candidate for governor with the highest name ID isn't actually in the race, and that's Tudor Dixon. She had higher name ID than both Jocelyn Benson and John James.
Fascinating.
And part of that is because Democrats and independents have a negative feeling towards her. They're unfavorable, and they remember that.
How do you think people honestly feel about John James? I mean, you had someone that's already tried to run statewide before twice, was unsuccessful, ran some very competitive, tight U.S. House seats these last 2 years, I mean, last 2 cycles. Are they kind of tired of him?
Well, I think that's a question we have amongst the chattering class more than the voters, to be honest. The voters don't view it that way. You know, they remember him. He still has high name ID. From the races for U.S. Senate. But, you know, I think he's a very formidable candidate. I think we're going to see very close elections in Michigan in 2 years. We have this cross current occurring where typically we change governors every 8 years to a different party. But typically the second year, the midterm, is against the party in power, which would be the Republicans. We're going to see those two cross currents take place this time. We're not sure which one's going to win out. So I would expect it to be a close election because of those cross currents.
I want to ask about road funding. It is one of the hottest topics, I would dare say the hottest topic in Lansing right now. Does the legislature and the governor, do they really have to do road funding?
Well, you know, there's not a survey I do in which the voters don't say the roads stink. And even with the work that's been done, you know, the roads just are a perennial issue in Michigan. But I will say this, in my 40-some years of polling, I have never done a poll where voters actually support an increase in the gas tax to fix the roads. And this is the challenge of road funding. Everybody says, fix the roads, but the voters aren't willing to expend any resources to fix those roads. And I think one of the challenges policymakers have on this road issue is nobody has thoroughly explained to the voters why the funding doesn't exist. Why is there not enough money to fix the roads? That's one of the things we hear in focus groups, that and the fact that voters all think they're road building experts, which is really funny. But they don't know why there's not money.
So when you ask a voter, why do you think the roads suck, what do they usually tell you?
Oh, we run the gamut. Michigan doesn't know how to do roads. Our winters, heavy trucks. Why aren't we building roads like such and such a state? It's actually pretty funny conversation to listen to because voters are experts on the roads. They're on them every day, and they all have an opinion about how to fix them.
As we kind of approach the end of our conversation here, people at the Mackinac Policy Conference, they're here to have conversations about policy, to have conversations about their future vision for Michigan. Mm-hmm. Based off of the polling you're doing, what do you think should be the top issues on the table right now?
Well, I think the top issue on the table should frankly be bipartisanship. How are we going to cross the aisle? How is each party going to go across that aisle and figure out a way to work with the other side to get something done, rather than just point fingers at each other? You know, we did a poll for the chamber before that asked the question, would you prefer a political leader who negotiates with the other side of the aisle and reaches deals, or would you prefer a political leader who sticks to their party's positions and represents them aggressively? 70-19, they want compromise.
But at the same time, you saw Governor Gretchen Whitmer get a lot of flack when she was negotiating with Donald Trump for the Selfridge deal. Do you think that was just a very, very loud minority?
Yes, that is the 19% on both sides of the aisle. It is the factions, the far right, far left. That is who we hear too much from, and we don't hear enough from the center of the aisle. Issues, elections are decided in the middle in Michigan by independents. That's who we need to pay attention to, and that's why they want compromise.
Now, and I guess, final question, when it comes to Governor Gretchen Whitmer, do you think Michigan's ready to push her over the line when it comes to a presidential bid in 2028 if she chooses to pursue one?
Well, I think that's the bigger question is, does she choose to pursue one? Is this something she wants, she's going to do? You got to make moves early to do that. I don't know if she's doing that.
Is the love there, though? Is the base there?
I can tell you Democrats, particularly in Michigan, love Gretchen Whitmer. Her numbers are genuinely, her job approval amongst Democratic voters is in the mid-90s, which is, you know, rarefied air for any governor. You know, her job approval has rung anywhere from 50 to 56. steadily since COVID, and it continues that way. She's done very well. She has very strong numbers here in Michigan.
Thank you so much, Richard. I appreciate talking to you.